So we're going to start chapter 35, Diaspora series. And I think we can recap a little bit here where we are so far. The story is in series, meaning that I give you bits and bobs as we go along, because it's a timeline. Meaning that at a particular moment, something is happening. So in 2001, let's go back. When I returned to the UK as an overseas student, an international student, according to the course I had applied, Sheila International University, King's College, London, Waterloo, that was my campus. Shipping and transport management. It's a business course. I had done customs clearing and forwarding in Kenya. Those who remember my times in Kenya, 1995, 1996. When I completed, I returned back to Uganda. Of course, I'm missing out the Tanzanian part. I went to Tanzania, and I almost was going to stay in Tanzania because I had finished my studies, isn't it? But the reason I was returning back to Uganda was because my mom was sick and she wanted me to come back. I'm the firstborn, so I had to take charge of things, So I was on my way back to Uganda. So that was a detour. So when I returned back to Uganda, you already know this, shortly thereafter, I landed a job. I landed a gig. It was a probation in the Uganda Revenue Authority as a declaration officer. Declaration, customs clearing. You strip the container, you do the manifest, you do all the things you need to do, the paperwork and all that, and then you work out the taxes. At that time, they had introduced a new tax called CTL, Commercial Transaction Levy. And a lot of people didn't know much about taxation. Back then, you only paid import duty, and that was it. Long room, you log in, and then that's it. It used to be the customs. And at Nakawa, there was a lot of money to be made. A lot of money. Kati, I made a very big windfall while in URA. The few months I was there, and I was based at the goods shed. Do you know that the goods shed used to, Manyikatawali Queen Clock Tower, there used to be a goods shed there for the railway. The train used to come right up to the city into Kampala. So that's where we used to do. Katindoza mutundira cement. It's I think a hardware area now. They sell their cement and all that. So how did I get into URA, by the way? You don't know. Uncle Medi Kagwa was the principal private secretary at the time. The time I'm joining URA, World Bank was handing over the whole project because Uganda Revenue, as it was a pilot agency that would be handed back to the government. They were teaching the government how to collect taxes effectively. So the director was a Ghanaian. I forget the name. He was retiring. So things were being handed over. So during my 6 months, I enjoyed working with the URA. I bought my first car. I did a lot of things. I was the corporate. Kampala was changing. Then that's when I met the investors. The investors of Capital Pub. Nabasangamu Capital Pub. And they had introduced gaming, but much of their machinery, the equipment they came with was still in storage. Katiku Capital Pub, wow, they used to play pool tables. Pool pool ng'abantu tebannamutegeera bulungi nnyo, pool, snooker. So lo and behold, like I introduced a tournament so people pick up playing pool. That's what draws the attention of those two investors. So we got talking. They told me, no, we are here, blah, blah, blah. The pub is doing well, Capital Pub, Kansanga, blah, blah, blah. They showed me the machines, the gaming machines. They were in storage. Many. I think there were about 50. So they give me the challenge to do something with them. I said, there is a possibility of rolling them out countryside. Yeah, they had tried a bit in Kampala, but Kampala, as Kampala is, it's very, very dynamic. Things happen so fast, and Capital Pub was doing very well. That is the era of sports bars, just kicking, Al's bar, Bani Bona, you go to Chisementi everywhere. Kampala was booming. They had just liberalized the economy in 1996. So everything was on the roll.
Yeah, for the
so much was happening. So that is the 1996, 97. I returned to Uganda amidst so much excitement. So I'm looking after my mom. Yes, buddy. See you. Good? All right, I'm good, yeah. So I look after my mom. She's poorly. She had fallen down. She had a stroke. Everything was, in Zambia hospital, blah, blah, blah. I'm all over the country, driving, Mbarara, wherever, Busia, Mala, everywhere, rolling out the machines. Now, my first branch was in Tororo. Itiaonedi, Tiemabel. The people of Tororo loved me so much. They gave me even a name. They gave me a name of Okocha. It was so successful. So when I got to Tororo, I met Diana. I met her in a bar. Diana. Nawide. I've looked for her till to date. I've not seen where she is. So I set her up to help me manage that branch. And before long, people were playing those machines, gaming machines, slot machines, you know them. Winning jackpots, payouts, and all that, everything. I got to Busia, Malaba, Mbale, Palisa. I was still going. I could even have gone up to Karamoja. I was expanding. By 98, I'm a billionaire. A billionaire. Then, of course, that is Paramount Investments and Entertainment. My mom passes away in 98, April 10th. She was lucky to have seen my success, but she was very, very worried about what I was doing. I was in so much money. So much money. So much money. I'm jumping. You already know these things. So, 99. I'm on the top. I was on the top. Kegus was on the top. And the climax of that is the Banker's Award. Standard Chartered Bank. I had 2 accounts in there. I had a regular business account and I had an international account. I am one of the first people. I brought even the idea on the table in the bank. I need to have my money in foreign currency. I said, okay, but we're not a forex bureau, blah, 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 blah. I said, no. They gave into that. In fact, I remember even that day, there was a powerful minister who was in the bank with me. And he overheard what we were talking and all that. He was interested. Nga nyinga na Bissau, I used to come in with the sacks of money in the bank. Independence Day, 9th October. 9th of October celebrations. Mwengendo bagulira Afrigo egendo kuba. Afrigo had a show at Sheraton Hotel, Kampala. That is like the who is who in Kampala was there. Of course, the celebrations had taken place at Kololo, and then this was the evening thing. There was even fireworks paid for by Paramount Investments. And that was 99. 2 months later, I would be in the UK, my maiden voyage. How it all happened, it happened from YMCA. Those who know YMCA Wandegear, Cedric Babu, rest in peace, was a very good friend of mine. He used to run tournaments. There was a lot of energy, things like that. YMCA, that's where I met a girlfriend. And we challenge each other. London. And then a friend of mine working with YMCA, William Kalega, had received some faxes. Back then things used to come like fax and others. I tell him, this is an invitation. They need you to put people. He was a program director. And then that's the invitation that brings me to the UK. Those who didn't know, that's how I end up coming with my girlfriend. We missed the first flight. We came on the second flight 2 weeks later, whatever, a week later. The fracas at the airport, what happened? My Bettina Bani, everybody, word went around, Kampala Kegus is going to London. Kegus ananache London, Gaga. Kegus, agende London. So I came for that exciting visit. It was a study tour. IT and all those things to do with internet promotions and everything. That's the Y2K dawn of the millennium. I returned back. She stayed here. Then I would return in 2001 to study. So while here, in 2000, on the visit, we had toured a few universities around London. And that's when I told you that the embassy contacted me that there is an admission that they've received for me to come and study in the UK. It was like a joke. So when I went to the embassy, my visa was already there waiting for me. They knew I had the money. Back then international students were bringing a lot of money here in the UK. And I could afford, because they had seen my bank details in the invitation, because you submitted what you are doing, what are you going to do, where you whatever. And while he also had shown interest in pursuing education in the UK, maybe at some point or some way down the line in the future. So I was a very good prospective student to any educational institution in the UK. So that's how I get my visa. And then I came. But the visa had conditions that I had to return every year, because I showed them that I was running a business. So how are you going to run your business when you are away for 3 years? I said, no, I can return every year, no problem. That explains why 2001, 2002, 3, and 4, I used to return to Uganda every December. Summer. And my return every December was highly anticipated. Highly. There was so much excitement in Kampala whenever I came back. Then that was the birth of the name Basama. So every day, that of course things catch up. Things mutate. And that's how I found myself in that kind of situation. So eventually, I begin my studies. First year, second year, third year, and I graduate. I have the pictures on the wall, I have my everything sorted. And then I return in 2004 to get on, to continue. But what I didn't tell you, people always ask me, Kegos, why did you have to return back to UK to study? You went backwards. No, I always had this dream of studying in the UK, not in sleep dreaming. Growing up, my mom always made it clear to me that you study in the UK. It was always talked about in the house every day. Oh, you're doing well, you're studying well. That explains why I went to study in Kenya. I could have gone to Makerere University, but my mom chose. She made that Naga Patrick, you have to go and study in Kenya. She had studied in Kenya. She knew Kenya very well. At the prestigious East African Civil Service College. It's no longer there. But those who know Utali College, those who know, it had many tentacles during the East African community. That was where all people who worked in the civil service were sent. So she went there and did secretarial studies, eventually working as a chief executive secretary in Uganda Development Corporation. She worked there for 5 years. Top job. Hatchery Division, Lutete, head offices were on 2nd Street, Industrial. So it is a quagmire, things kind of catch you in between. So doing that was paying back what I felt was, and I could afford. It wasn't like, no, you can't. I was a fully paid up international student when I was here. Not knowing that now that is changing the direction of my life. And in 2005, I would offload Paramount Investments. I would offload everything. I had done so much. Miss Uganda, Uganda motorolling, this entertainment, this. My hands were everywhere. I was in so many things. That is the background we're talking about. And it answers one question I've tried to explain again and again. And in fact, one person asked me, Kegus, you have the potential. First of all, you're very good at what you do. And you're very abantu bakwagala nnyo. People still talk about you. Nakolera abantu ebintu bingi nnyo. Mugende ku Makerere University, Africa Hall. They'll ask you, mujjukira gaayo yajjanga n'apaakinga wano. Ye Bettina naye n'omuwala gwe nali njagala ku Makerere University, Africa Hall. Muwala w'amaanyi nnyo, muwala wa General. Sisobola babuulira bingi nnyo, kasa story nagibawa. I give you the story of Bettina. Mwana muto. If I wanted, I would have married her. Yes, coach. Where is your spare change, man? Yeah, all right. He's got nice shoes, very nice shoes. And bingi nnyo ebyaliwo. So when I bring you the Diaspora series, I'm relating back to back, because in time and place where I am right now, in 2012, that's in the story, chapter 33, 34. I am at the Middlesex University Now, the question would be, were you charged so much? What were you still studying? Things had changed, obviously. The world around me had changed, obviously. I'd been away for a long time. So when I leave Uganda in 2005, never to return. Never to return. I wanted to settle down. That one was obvious because when I sold my company, what about betting? Do you see all those betting shops in Kampala? Betting and gaming and all that. And that is when they had introduced the gaming rules and the policies and everything. Back in my day, it was the Wild West. There were no rules. There were rules. We made up our own rules. We paid our own taxes and everything. I was employing about 200 people. Payroll, but now things are different. And Uganda had changed. So if you want to get a picture of what I'm talking about, you look at the betting shops spread across the country. And you imagine Kegus owning about 20 shops in each town. How much money is involved? And how much... So that is the kind of picture I'm talking about. So when I hosted that two-day party in Angenois, it was the final curtain call. I wanted to settle down. And I thought where I'm going to put myself is where I should make that decision. And that decision was imminent. And there was no turning back. There was no, it was like that. That was the situation we are talking about. So in recapping what we are talking about, 2012, I'm in Uganda. Chenabagambye nti nalinga omugenyi. I felt disconnected. I could not really fit anywhere. Of course, I was coming back home. I was coming back. I love Uganda, but people were saying, "You abandoned us." But times had changed. Times. But let's go back. My first 4 years as a student here, I enjoyed my student experience. I went to America twice. I met very many nice people in America. I almost fell in love. I fell in love, let's to be honest with you. Bless her. She was a very beautiful American beauty. She was a white girl. Very beautiful. And if at that time I made that decision, it was a point of no return. I would have stayed in America. But I had to finish my studies. Or I could have transferred my study grades and studied in the US. But it wasn't practical. The difficult thing there was this. My baby mama, the mom of my son, I got the news that she was going to give birth while I'm in the US. Can you imagine? I've talked about the fracas at the airport, scandal that involved her as well. And my return to the UK in 2001, we had a relationship that was going on. Since 1998, she was an on and off girlfriend. She was studying at Nkozi University. Today it's called Uganda Matters University. Back then it was called Nkozi Teacher Training. She was doing arts. By the time she graduated in 2001, she was pregnant. I had returned to the UK. But you see the situation, catch. I've never explained these things the way I'm telling you, but that was the picture. So I had to make a quick exit to return to the UK. And then that Christmas, go back to Uganda. And then return to the UK 2002. And then go to the US. it was, so I had to let go of one thing. And I told her, I have to turn back, I was very honest with her, brutally honest, So, but I'll give you that story of the American beauty and what really was happening and what the stakes were, how high were the stakes. And eventually, when I returned back to the UK, after that summer, I carry on with my studies. So, it's a tight one. It's a very tight squeeze. When you look back and put things in context. True. So when I offload my business, Paramount Investments, I came back with a windful of money. Na koma on a sente mpitiri bunywa na UK natunda buli kintu almost about 200 million. That's about 40,000 pounds, something like that. Hey, cash. Twatambulanga na sente bisere. And then I, ngula motoka, things like that. Life just continues from there. It's not like anything else. The thing wasn't, I am not returning back to Uganda anytime soon. Are we together? And again, I'm following a series. There's always something inherent behind something. Inherently underlining. I'm a very, very principled person. But if I could forsake Bettina, if I'd kept the relationship with Bettina, I would be in the government of Uganda now. Probably a minister, probably a high profile, high ranking, someone somewhere. Sina gwe simanye Uganda awo. Tewali munene gwe simanye Uganda awo. Tutandikira mu judiciary, tutandikira mu executive, tutandikira mu parliament, tutandikira wa kubanga investment part of Paramount. Na dealinganga na musente z'abanene. Bantambulizanga mu sente zaabwe. Kati mbabulya temumanyi bintu bino. Nga banesiga you are the bintu temumanyi bintu bingi nnyo kansoke nkomawo. So I'm saying si regretting kola decisions nakola nebi nali nkozeeko byali even far ahead of me and beyond me. Nene njagala nnyo okusoma and nobody can take that away from me. I've got my qualifications, I've got my education, and I'm very proud of that. Are we together? People when they look, hey guy, people blame me so many times. Say, look at him, you man, we like you. Anyway, my coming to the UK made a very big statement. And it reverberated around Kampala. But it was already a foregone conclusion. I couldn't turn it back. And that was it. So in the series now, we shall explore much more deeper. It's going to be a deep dive. Deep dive. We're going to dive deep into our story. And then we learn a lot. Nagana muyige. Temulaba nti we are talking. We are learning.